Looks like we're live. I think we're live. Yeah, let's see. I'm waiting on my OBS to show up here. Welcome everyone to Learning About Movies channel, April 2021. And if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, getting closer to spring and summer. We are in spring, so I'm very much looking forward to that. Got some great stuff for you today. I got a little bit of I've got tech things going on here. I can actually show you my browser. I finally figured out how to do that. So we'll look at what's leaving the Criterion Channel and what you might watch in the Criterion Channel on Netflix. These movies that are going off the channels, it helps you, as I've said before, sort of reduce the choices that you've got. You've got an infinite amount of choices of movies to watch online. So we'll look at what's leaving those channels. And as always, we'll probably talk movies, other things in the chat. So feel free to send any chat questions for all of us to look at, and I'll deal with them and try to answer them. I thought maybe today I'd start with, I like show and tell. So I thought I'd show you a couple things and some of the backbones, the skeletal stuff to my videos that I don't reveal sometimes. I actually really like the study of philosophy in general. I don't usually talk about philosophers or big names, but I am always dealing with this kind of thing. Let's see if I can show it to you without the glare. So I highly recommend this. I am not sponsored by them. This is a great courses, but for those of you who are out of college, older, you're going to want to watch this and go through this series of lectures. I really like the lecture here. It's about philosophy from the last 400 years. He just goes over the major thinkers from Descartes in the 17th century on to the 20th, 21st centuries. And the one reason why you should go through this, even if you already have, and I am doing it even though I've been over it several times, this material in my life, is because this is the substance of movies. This discusses freedom, all the different concepts of freedom, what a substance is, fragmentation and unity, and you're going to need to know all the stuff in here. Existentialism, my goodness, pragmatism, and it's all in this. And I think for beginners in philosophy, if you've never dealt with philosophy before, this isn't a bad place to start, although you'll definitely want to end up, you'll want more out of it. So I really I'm doing this, watching this during my workout. So who publishes it? The Great Courses. And you can find them usually, I found this for like $60. They usually have a sale at some point in time. It's like a flash sale. I don't know how much it costs regularly, but it's pretty good. I actually like the lecturer. I think he's quite relatable and interesting. I mean, someone like that should be on YouTube. And there probably are YouTube philosophy lecturers, but I've not been out on YouTube to see them. So feel free to post them in the links. Also, another book, I several months ago, no one will remember this probably, but I was trying to think of the guy, the professor who dealt with regicide, that is government's mass killings of people. Regicide being government killings of citizens, of people in their countries. And this is the book I was thinking of, where this man has studied, I think he's dead now, R.J. Rummel, but studied how many people actually died by the hands of government in the 20th century. And it's an incredible amount. Of course, this relates to movies a lot. So when you deal with POW camps or movies about genocide, I am not, actually now I'm right in the middle of watching a movie. I haven't finished it yet. Ingmar Bergman's Shame, which is a war movie, and here comes this material into that. So very good. Yeah, the Great Courses, they have a streaming channel, huh? I haven't not been over there to see what it is. I imagine they're not giving away the stuff that they're making people pay for. But anyway, all that's to say, there's a lot of background, a lot of cultural material people need to know about movies, and I usually interject that into my videos. All right, so movies to watch. Let me do this. Let's see if I can pull this off today. Show you my browser. Aha, now that's me streaming. But over here, there you go. This is the Criterion Channel. And on the Criterion Channel, which I'm not sponsored by. You know, they have what's leaving the channel, and that helps me actually, maybe some of you sort of figure out what to watch, because a lot of this stuff on the Criterion Channel you may never see again. It's probably not streaming elsewhere. Some of it may be free on YouTube or elsewhere on the internet, but here you go. So I was looking at this list of what's leaving the channel. I saw this like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that movie's on there, because here it is. One False Move. I actually have the DVD here, and there's no Blu-ray copy of it. And so I'm imagining this right here, if you can see my cursor there, that's probably in HD. I did not watch this movie on the Criterion Channel. It's a movie that Roger Ebert said, if you look through Roger Ebert's Great Movies book and his top 10 list, I think in 1992 or 1991 or 3, one of those years, he put it second in his top 10 list for the year. One False Move. And this is not a movie anybody's ever heard of. So that got me curious. I ended up buying the DVD because I couldn't find it anywhere. I didn't see it on the Criterion Channel. And it's actually a pretty good movie. A noir movie that Billy Bob Thornton wrote. He co-stars in it as sort of a nasty killer. The great Bill Paxton is in this movie as a podunk sheriff in an Arkansas town. It's about a couple of really nasty killers coming from Los Angeles to Arkansas in some middle of nowhere town. And you know there's going to be a showdown in the movie. A little bit of a Western element, but heavy crime and even a little bit of noir elements to it. So I recommend it. It's got an interesting plot twist. I wouldn't say it's the greatest movie ever, but Ebert and Siskel and Ebert. You know, Siskel is quoted on here saying the best detective thriller, something like that. So it's you wouldn't probably have heard of it except to peruse older lists like that. So I'm recommending that to try if that sounds good to you. Now, most of these movies I actually haven't seen, so I'm no authority, and those of you in the chat can bring up anything that you see on here. My wife and children love this book, Swallows and Amazons. I believe they've seen the movie, which I have not, but I think this is nice escapist pastoral thing, and it may be in England, but I think that's really good stuff for a family, for family movies, because I've got colleagues and other people always asking what are the family movies to watch. There aren't that many, or we've exhausted them. And so this movie is from the 1970s, and it may be of interest to many of you, especially to maybe jumpstart somebody into reading. I think there's a whole series of Swallows and Amazon books, I think. And I'm going to scroll down here very quickly. This is a good book. The movie's okay. Postman always rings twice, but you can read the book. And there's a whole series of black westerns on Criterion Channel, which I've started to watch. They are not the highest quality westerns of all. You wouldn't put them in, say, a top 10 or top 50 list. But they're actually pretty interesting. Duel at Diablo was, I think, the one I'm on Letterboxd I recommended. It's not leaving the channel. But maybe something like Buffalo Soldiers, which is really interesting historically about a group of black cavalrymen after the Civil War, I think in the Indian Wars in the 1860s, maybe 1870s. And to me, that's great story material. I don't know if this movie is any good because it was a TV movie originally, but you may try to check that out. That time period, the genre, and the setting really interest me. So I probably will try that at some point. Now I get down here, and I'm assuming you could see this. The King and the Mockingbird. So this movie, I'm going to switch over here to look at the chat for just a minute. This movie, The King and the Mockingbird, is a French movie from 1980, it says. And Studio Ghibli, I believe, was quite influenced by it. That's what the description says here, at least. It looks like a Disney movie that's been updated. A Disney movie from the 40s or 50s. It's based on a Hans Christian Andersen story. There's a lot of silent material in it, not much dialogue. And I really just appreciated watching this movie for the animation style, which is sort of familiar, but sort of not. It looks a little bit different than just about any animated movie I've ever seen. I love Hans Christian Andersen material. It's usually really rich. And I recommend this movie if you're looking for sort of a children's movie that your children may be absorbed by, but you want to turn your brain on a little bit and think about what's going on in it. And I found this to be actually quite good overall. And I hadn't seen it before. I watched this a couple months ago, so I never knew about it. That's what I like about Criterion Channel. By the way, their matinees, their family movies, they tend to show things or put things on there that I've never heard of, or that are rare, that aren't promoted, that aren't marketed at all, and certainly Disney doesn't own them and market them to people. So that's an interesting one for families. I like Bill Forsyth a lot, this great Scottish director, and so his movie Gregory's Girl, which came out before a movie I highly recommend, Local Hero. In fact, on this channel, I probably promoted it 3 or 4 times in different videos. Local Hero, one of my favorites. And before this, he made Gregory's Girl, which is a quirky, fun, sort of lighthearted teenage movie about teenagers. And what I like about Forsyth is he's got a great eye, great cinematography, great characters, like really as best he can, imitatable human or simulated human characters. Nobody's really good or bad in his movies. There's no villain usually in them, and I appreciate that sort of mature adult viewpoint from him. So that's a good one. I have not seen this movie, Don's Party, but I noticed a couple of Bruce Beresford movies. An Australian director who I really like a lot. I mean, every movie that I've seen by him is quite good. On my channel, Breaker Morant, which is really a tremendous war movie about Australian soldiers fighting for the British Empire. But it's maybe worth trying a couple of these Bruce Beresford movies. He made the great Tender Mercies with Robert Duvall. I believe Driving Miss Daisy, and maybe in the chat you've got a couple others you remember, but he's always quite good. I don't know if these early movies by him are that great, but you could check him out. That's something I recommend. All right. I'm going down through here, and most of these I've not even heard of. And that's the great thing about Criterion Channel. You can try things. Joseph von Sternberg would be one to try. This sort of older 1920s, 30s Hollywood, even pre-code movies, if you're into the sort of older movies. And yeah, if anybody in the chat mention whatever you think is great here. Here's the other Bruce Beresford movie. I kind of was interested in this one. And these would be, from 1977, these would be Australian movies, because the Criterion Channel put an Australian New Wave series, which I watched probably half of those. And it's quite interesting. I like Australian films quite a bit. Always have. The director, Peter Weir, for example, is always good. I wish he would have made more movies. He seems to have retired. So Peter Weir, please come out of retirement. Maybe you're enjoying your wealth, which I can't blame you for. Okay, so there's the Criterion Channel. I should say Netflix. I don't have the page up here, but Netflix has a couple of movies leaving. One of which is Platoon. If you haven't seen Platoon, I did a video on it. It's a Vietnam movie. It's worth pursuing if that's your kind of thing. It's a classic memoirish Oliver Stone movie about his own experience in Vietnam. And then 2 nonsense movies in a way. I just love nonsense movies. Snowpiercer. Oh, this movie. I ragged on Parasite on this channel, but Snowpiercer is just so ridiculous. It's got the dumbest premise I can imagine, and yet it's so much fun, and so takes itself seriously at times. And that movie, Snowpiercer, about the train, climate change has happened. I think the premise is climate change was going to happen all over the world, global warming, and so humans somehow seed the atmosphere. They do something that creates actually global cooling. The entire world turns into Antarctica, and there's this one train running on tracks around the world or around Asia, I don't know where, and the remainder of humanity is on this train. And so it's just a big metaphor of hierarchy and humanity, class structure, class division, because the train is a front and a back to it, and there's conspiracies on it. It's just kind of goofy. It's got Chris Evans in it. Most of you probably know that movie, but one day I'll show that to my kids. I don't think it's for them right now. But another movie on Netflix leaving it that I saw is I Am Legend, which I might actually show my 14-year-old, because that's another sort of goofy, ridiculous, fun science fiction movie with a great plot twist, also based on a pretty good novel by Richard Matheson. I was going to show you as well, the last thing to do for show and tell here. This is a page, I use this page, firstshowing.net. There could be others out there that are just as good or better. This tells me what's coming out in movie theaters over the course of the year. And it updates it pretty regularly, and is usually quite accurate, so it's reliable enough for me. But I'm looking at the April 2021 releases, new movies, and oh my goodness, this is awful. What in the world is going on here? I think the movie studios have saved all of the movies from last year, 2020, and placed them in the last half of 2021. The output here, I mean, March was far better. March at least had movies that some people would be interested in, whether it was this Raya and the Last Dragon animated movie. I didn't see Nobody, but I want to see it. It was in the local theater. I just didn't have time to go to it, but I like Bob Odenkirk a lot. Short movie, so why not give it a try? If you've seen it, let us know. Also, The Father came out. I think it might have come out in March, but now it's on video on demand. I didn't see this either, but that's because it was $20. I sort of object to paying $20 for a video on demand movie, so I'm waiting for it to be cheaper. And no, I do not yet have screener privileges for that. I wish I did. So, and then Godzilla vs. Kong came out, which at the very least, the fight scenes would be fun. I mean, you know that the sound effects and the CGI people did an amazing job before you even saw the movie, and it's absolutely true. You just watch I ragged on it in my review, but the last 25 minutes is just very, very fun. So anyway, April promises to be awful. I can't even imagine enjoying Mortal Kombat, even though when I was a kid I played the controversial video game when it came out, but how could this be entertaining? I'm not sure. Maybe it will be great. We'll see. But if you see anything on this list, let me know. Once I get down to May, this is better, and I realized in May, this Wrath of Man, no, not Wrath of Man. What movie? Oh, Those Who Wish Me Dead. That's the one I wanted to point out. That one right there, May 14th, is by director Taylor Sheridan, who made a couple of movies I really like. He made Hell or High Water, and I think he might have been just a writer on that one. But then he wrote and directed Wind River, which I really like that one too. About, what is it, a national park ranger, I think, and Indians around Wyoming or Colorado. And there's a murder mystery, but it's also this sort of mystical Jack London thing going on in the movie. And I really appreciated it. So that was Wind River. Then he's making one here coming out in theaters and HBO Max. So May promises, I'm looking at May, A Quiet Place. We know that one, the first one. Cruella, that'll interest some people. Maybe even Army of the Dead. Things like this coming out on streaming may be interesting. And who knows what we'll get. But May seems to be a little bit more interesting, at least on the surface. Right. So there you go with my, let me turn my browser off now. There you go with the April releases. Now, that was just about 10 to 15 movies you could watch. It's definitely going to take up a lot of time, and you choose among these. But if I were to choose any of the ones I just mentioned, if you like noir crime stuff, watch One False Move. And if you have a family, watch the King and the Mockingbird movie. I think both of those are really worth trying. They're not going to blow you away, probably. You're not going to go, oh, that's the greatest movie I've seen in a year. But they're reliable and they're thoughtful. So that's why I'm recommending them. All right. Oh, we got quite a few people here. Yeah, thank you for the 10,000 subscriber thing. That video I put out on 10,000 subscribers was really helpful to me. I appreciate all the comments, quite flattering. But I wanted to know why people even watch YouTube channels, and this channel in particular. I can see it from my point of view, but I don't have your point of view. So it was really nice to see all the comments and suggestions. And to me, this channel, hopefully it's getting better. I've worked in the last 70 or so videos on my acting. It's very difficult to act well on camera. I'm not a natural actor. I never studied it. But in fact, that's one of the keys to a YouTube channel, perhaps, is how people act and if they're winning in their personality and their little micro gestures. So about every 70 videos, I try to work on things that I have no clue about. So hopefully things are getting better. Yeah, I'm looking at your comments and reacting to what I said. Yeah, Regicide is killing the king. Yeah, it is. But I think that this guy, he uses that term, regicide is just death by government. I'm not sure what a better term would be. But the kingdom, or the democracy, or the republic, or the communist state kills their own citizens. That's what he's referring to with regicide. So he just sort of blanket statement about any kind of state. And I think it's just the 20th century. It probably starts with the Armenian genocide. Professor, okay, I love this point right here. Professor, I respect your movie opinions, but I didn't like I'm thinking of ending things. Okay, and then someone else said, couldn't stand it either, depressing. The movie I'm thinking of ending things is a Netflix movie by Charlie Kaufman, writer-director who's known for these, heady, quirky, thoughtful movies, I suppose, but they are all depressing. If you've seen any of his output, you got to know that that's what you're going into. Yes, it is. I was entertained by it. My thinking about it, I'm left with a bitter taste from that movie for sure. And I think if I rewatched it and studied it, I like it even better. Because it's a horror movie without the horror. It's a psychological horror movie that is about the kind of person, and it really is, I said this in the video, but he's trying to describe an ordinary person you would dismiss because of their place in society, maybe their race, maybe their, how much money they have. We tend to dismiss those people as NPCs. Some people do. You know what an NPC is, a non-playing character in a video game, and it's a dismissive term. Maybe a person like that supposedly has no inner thought life. Maybe they're just clones, or maybe if we're living in a simulation, maybe they are actually NPCs and there's nothing there. They're just programmed. And the idea being, it's a humanist movie, which I really like. Humanist in the 16th, 17th century terms. Everybody has a rich inner life, potentially at least, thoughts, imagination, memories, wishes, dreams, and a whole mix. It's the Montaigne, the great French essayist. His point was, when he wrote about this, everybody has, humongous geography, an Earth-like geography in their head. Mountains, valleys, deserts, oceans. Only that person has access to them. We don't. And that movie sort of describes that the person, I don't want to spoil it, but that person's inner life at a certain point in his life, which I find really interesting. But yes, it is a dark movie that you wouldn't want to watch with a date, probably. And so I liked it a lot, but I have not liked other Charlie Kaufman movies that he's directed. Anomalisa, boy, that is so depressing. And the other one is Schenectady, New York, which I couldn't even get through that. That was so depressing. So I get what you're saying. It's just I survived that movie, and it really stimulated me for various reasons. I'm thinking of ending things. Great Courses channels on Amazon Prime in the UK. Oh, so maybe the Great Courses does have a channel in the States that you can subscribe to, which would be great. I mean, for those of you who don't want to pay $100,000 for a degree, or which I recommend not doing, or you want to learn something, but you don't just want to jump on YouTube and get whatever's free, because you sort of get what you pay for sometimes. Yeah, go ahead. I try it, because I usually go to the Great Courses about once a year in order to learn something or to refresh my memory, because I need to. It's part of my job, actually, is to learn more and to sort of relearn what I've learned. Yeah, let's see. Gregory's Girl is a good coming-of-age story. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Gregory's Girl. Recommend that. Yeah, thanks for recommending The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. What did you like about that movie? I'm very interested in that. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of people on the channel saying thank you for introducing me to so-and-so. Jacques Tati was one. This other movie, this other movie. And I am generally always surprised. I always think people know about the movies, and then they're introduced to these older movies that were classics or were well known and may not be. And I think that's great that you're coming to see the classics remain relevant, and that may be one, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. The Night of Counting Years. I've never heard of that, Jerry. The Night of Counting Years is an interesting Egyptian movie. Well, that's worth trying. What laptop am I using? I'm not sure why you're asking that. It's a crummy work. I shouldn't say that, but it's pretty lame. I need one that's super powerful. All right, John Jansen says Walkabout. Walkabout is an Australian movie. Now, John, go read my Letterboxd review of that, where I absolutely trashed that movie. There were reasons I didn't like that at all. However, people love it. And so I could have miswatched it. But I find that, yes, Walkabout is the flavor of Australian movie I'm talking about. Certainly in the late 60s, but 70s especially, the Australian film industry really gets going and does internationally acclaimed work. Walkabout being one of them that is, internationally acclaimed. And Peter Weir, the Picnic at Hanging Rock movie, and a bunch of others. So, yeah, and the Outback is a great place to film, I think. I just love watching stuff about the Outback. It's not quite the American West, but it is. Sort of a Western, setting, but not. And it's its own unique place. So maybe one day I'll travel there. Maybe I shouldn't. Probably die. All right. Snowpiercer, love Parasite. Yeah, people love Parasite. I should probably rewatch it. I should probably just... because people hate my video on Parasite, which is an old... I should have done a better video, but that was in the early days of my channel. Yeah, there's some great stuff in the chat room, so... reading it over. Taylor Sheridan wrote Sicario. Yes, he's got his writing is, pretty good for sort of action, thoughtful action. I'm not sure what to call them, but thoughtful action movies. Guy Ritchie's Wrath of Man looks pretty underwhelming. Is there a good Guy Ritchie movie that you all like? I'm very curious because I'm always underwhelmed by his output, but maybe I have not watched his early stuff, so maybe he's better earlier on. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know Lee Chang-dong's... No, do I know Burning? Yeah, I do have a review of that. I thought that was a pretty movie. I was not in love with it because it is another one of those existential lost in the modern world movies that looks like other existential lost in the modern world movies about young people. And I think my Letterboxd review was complaining about this is just an age thing. I'm a little too old for that. Not too old, but young people lost in the world. I shouldn't say anything negative about it, but it was like the other movies I've seen. I don't know. I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, and so I like the sort of Gen X lost in the modern American movies a little bit better than Burning. But I think people should, especially younger people, should check that out and see if they like it. Yeah. Jerry says, Picnic on Hanging Rock is my favorite Peter Weir movie. So Peter Weir, I should do a whole series on. Because he started on Australia and then went to Hollywood. And his Hollywood movies, everybody knows, but I think his best Hollywood movies are not known. I'm going to look him up right now and make sure I get his filmography correct. Everybody knows Truman Show. And what in the world? The Robin Williams movie. I should know this. I'm in my head, it's Stand and Deliver, which is wrong. Dead Poet Society. He made that. Everybody knows that. But you've got his Australian movies and his American movies that are lesser known. Like, I really like this movie with Harrison Ford in it called The Mosquito Coast, based on a book by Paul Theroux. And Mosquito Coast, I should do a video on that in my channel. I respect it a lot. I appreciate it. Our Family Loves Master and Commander, so people know that one. He made an excellent movie. The last movie he made, not excellent, but watchable, and I thought pretty good. The Way Back, prison camp escape movie, prisoners in Siberia escaping. And then Gallipoli is his World War I movie, and I should do a video on that. And as I go down the list of Peter Weir movies, it's like, well, The Last Wave, I should do a video on that. Witness, we should do, right? And so on. So these movies that he made, they're all usually pretty good. And even the one I'm looking at is 1979's The Plumber. That's on Criterion Channel, and that's a really interesting Kafka-esque movie about a plumber who comes over and sort of terrorizes a homeowner who wants to renovate her bathroom. And if you've ever been in that experience where you've had contractors come into your house and just stay in your house and for weeks or months and they sort of never get the job done, The Plumber is one you should watch. I've been waiting to recommend that for leaving the Criterion Channel. I think it's still on there, but because I've been through that, it's a great movie about class, lower class, upper class. Now the upper class is terrorized by the lower class coming into their house and just sort of being psychopathic and how they reconstruct the home. So The Plumber is quite interesting. This Peter Weir movie. So I should try to see if I could interview him on the channel. That would be a good interview. If that could ever happen, that would be a dream. Walkabout is amazing, but not for everyone. Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah. Jerry says, I'm your age and I like burning. Yeah, I mean, these existential Lost in the Modern World movies, it's either sort of hypnotized by them or you're not, and you probably will hate them if you're not. And I use hypnotized in a nice way. I really do mean it like that, where you watch a movie and it's got this sort of, you're in the right mood for it. It's got this sort of slow burn pace. It's got the visuals. It's got the faces that work for you. And then you sort of fall in love with the world and the problem of the character, and you get the existential crisis they're going through. So the one I recommended last time was Winter Sleep, which I'm still thinking about that one. But there's a bunch of these that I don't like so much. So I do think it's partly about the mood I'm in and whether I'm taking to it or not. Yeah. There's some great stuff in the chat, so feel free to look over here. Favorite films about Christianity and or religion. I thought about doing a series on that. I thought about putting up a letterbox list on that. One of the problems with that, even just saying that, is it is possible to construe that you're going to argue with me here, but all movies as religious. By that I mean they have certain assumptions or beliefs that can't be proven. They're based on some notion about what's true and what's not true, what exists and what can exist, and what factors in the universe, say, are controlling the things that happen or the actions that take place. Now, if you want to define religion as some kind of traditional religion with an actual set of doctrines and beliefs and practices, that's fine, and then we can go use that definition to talk about, best religious movies, which, I mean, I'd have to think about that more. I recently did a video, which is not out on the channel yet, on Winter Light by Bergman. A movie I don't like very much, but I respect. And so Winter Light was reminding me of a lot of movies that came after it that are definitely talking to it. If you haven't seen Winter Light by Bergman, you ought to. It's 80 minutes. It's like the greatest expression of the death of Christianity or near death of it in Europe. I think. At least the death of it in Sweden. Somewhat of the God is dead talk from Nietzsche. But more like nobody's going to church anymore. Nobody believes anymore, seemingly after World War II. So Winter Light is so bleak and stark, and that sort of Swedish Scandinavian style that Bergman has really works in that movie quite well. And then I thought about the movies that came after Winter Light that are influenced by it. And Of Gods and Men is somewhat of an answer to it. So you should check out Of Gods and Men, which I should do a video on that. My goodness, I have not done that. First Reformed, which definitely takes all kinds of elements from Winter Light and reworks them. And then there's this Polish movie I'm still thinking about from 2 years ago called Corpus Christi, which is quite different. It's about a man who is in prison. He seems to know a lot about Christianity. He gets out and he accidentally becomes a priest, and he sort of lives this role as a priest even though he's not ordained. And it's a pretty interesting movie on the Criterion Channel, Corpus Christi. And I think all of these movies about priests and pastors are responses to Winter Light in some way. But there's more to the Christianity or even just religion in general angle. So the movie I really recommend to you, I will do a video on it, is Mishima. Or really anything by Paul Schrader, but Mishima, which I will talk extensively about. And that's not about Christianity, but it's about faith and belief and the older ways. This is a Japanese movie, but it's really applicable probably to most places in the world. And I think Paul Schrader figured that out. So Silence is another one. Yes, Dryers or Debt. So a bunch of suggestions are coming up over here. A Man for All Seasons, absolutely. And I haven't seen Saint Maud. So yeah, and Boonwell's movies, Simon of the Desert is a really good one. This is like 45 minutes on Criterion Channel. Worth pursuing. So there are dozens and probably hundreds of these that I probably should organize them and figure out how to present them to you and to the world on YouTube, and then do something with that question, because I think it's a really good one. And it's also one that's historically interesting because in the early parts of Hollywood, or like 1930s and 40s, you get a explosion in audience desire to go to movies, and America is largely Protestant and Catholic at the time, and the huge amounts of movies about priests, for example, The Bishop's Wife. And I did a video on the Waterfront, this sort of hero priest figure taking on the mob in that movie. You get a lot of good priests, good Catholic bishop types in the 1930s and 40s, and you have the Hays Code, which says that no Hollywood movie, this is the self-censorship code of Hollywood. No Hollywood movie can portray a minister in a negative light, and there are ways that movies tried to get around that. But the reason they couldn't portray them in a negative light, pastors, ministers, priests, is because it would prescribe the idea, tell people the idea that there's something wrong with priests or ministers, like Elmer Gantry, for example. That kind of sort of nasty, two-faced, hypocritical, unbelieving. And look at Winter Light by Bergman, for example. That's not the kind of thing that you want. You want to promote good priests and ministers, and so you should show them as such in the movies. So then over time, once the Hays Code disappears and you get in the 50s and 60s, you get creepy pastors and ministers. Look at that video I did on The Night of the Hunter, which is a sort of a self-appointed pastor or preacher who's a serial killer. And that's the kind of character you start to get, and we still have it with us. But then there are all kinds of movies that sort of do the dance of, well, the minister has his problems, but he's great overall, like The Apostle with Robert Duvall. So, yeah, it's now that I'm talking about this sounds like a series of videos rather than just one. But yeah, it's really interesting, and there's many good ones, because that individual crisis of faith, and you get to see the minister's anguish in his face on screen. Movies are great at presenting you with the individual who is going through some kind of radical personal change or crisis. And, it's perfect for religion in a way, or any kind of religion, but perfect for like a man of faith who's in the community, a man of faith like a pastor. Yeah. So anyway, Passion of Joan of Arc. Yes, the one by Dreyer. Right? I've got to do a video on that. I'm just thinking about that, how great that is in the new modern soundtrack with a choir on the Criterion Channel disc is amazing. I mean, unbelievable. So you're right, Passion of Joan of Arc. There are many Joan of Arc movies, actually, and she's one of those figures of faith, medieval faith even, this older faith that's maybe vanished, who comes into the 20th century, and there's several movies about her. The woman also oppressed by men theme comes up with the Joan of Arc thing too. Yeah. Scorsese's Silence. Yeah, in fact, the Japanese Silence, the first one from the 70s, is really interesting. If you can track that down, it was on Criterion Channel, but the silent, I can't remember the director's name, But it is, and then you can watch the Scorsese movie with, knowing that he had watched, not just read the novel, but watched that earlier Silence movie, because the endings are very different. Yeah, so I suggest checking that one out if you can find it. The first Silence movie, it's from the 1970s. Yeah. I'm trying to read these comments and try not to miss all of them. The issue is that Hollywood is now dominated by non-Christians, if you know what I mean. And the code before was an understanding not to cross the line. Yeah, and then there's license to sort of do, the taboos of modern Hollywood are bizarre to me, and that's just why Hollywood, by Middle America and other places, gets ragged on, is because when I say we, I'm representing the people I'm around. Not necessarily my views, although maybe some of them. That we don't understand why you care about this thing but don't care about this other thing. You care quite a bit about violence against animals. You won't show that in a movie. Go watch the recent Call of the Wild, and it just expurgates all the violence from the book. I mean, the book is heavily violent, dogs fighting dogs, and then you just get not a lot of it, not what you need to in order to do a proper Call of the Wild movie. I know it's a Disney movie, but then you have violence against people or violence against children. Well, no big deal. I mean, in modern Hollywood movies, they're just strange in that way. I mean, to us. So it's sort of, modern Hollywood definitely represents, they're not the values that the rest of the world has, or parts of America have even, and yet they do depict things in order to persuade us, don't they? Yes, they do. So I'm looking, Mishima is excellent. Oh, it's an amazing movie. I can't recommend that enough to you all. Mishima. The structure of it, the biopic aspect of it, the questions that it asks about masculinity in the modern world. It may enter my top 10 one day. I mean, it's that good. I'll have to watch it a couple more times to really just study it. And hopefully I'll do that this summer and get a video out to you on Mishima. Oh, Race with the Falcons. Okay, you loved Winter Light but hated First Reformed. So I'm kind of the opposite, because I like what Schrader was doing. He takes a movie that's very individualistic with almost nobody in it, Winter Light, and he makes it social, and he makes it interpersonal, if you know what I mean. I won't give anything away, but the main issues in that movie are treated as if they matter, versus in Winter Light, the Chinese nuclear weapon thing was just sort of a delusion. But then the issues like climate change, suicide, being widowed, the megachurch aspect of in American Christianity, the church becoming a museum, all of those, and the history of that church as a sort of stop on the Underground Railroad, all of those things are important. And Winter Light is very much about that pastor's sort of personal doubt, if you will. But it's very focused on that, and so I certainly see why people like it. Mashira Shinoda directed The Silence. Yes, thank you. I couldn't find that on IMDb. Shout out to Michael Vick. We need more dogfighting movies. Well, that's what Call of the Wild is. Read it. Read the Jack London book. I just used it in class, and like half of the book is dogfighting and dogs killing other dogs. So I'm just saying that. And it's also about the natural world being as cruel and literally dog eat dog as it can be. And the proper Call of the Wild movie should probably be R-rated at the least. Yeah. Well, okay. What is White God? Is that a movie that has a different foreign or international title? White God. I have not seen this, but I did like this guy's movie, Pieces of a Woman. So I should watch that then. Thank you for that. That's interesting. White God then. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, the Joan of Arc video will not do well on YouTube. There is likely zero searches for Joan of Arc. So I'll do it as a labor of love and as it needs to be done. But some of the videos I do, they're not going to be successful in terms of views. But I figure the legacy project going on here, sort of building up the channel, doing a variety of movies I think are great. Yeah. That's a Dostoevsky novel. Now is that a movie that is a Hollywood movie, or is that something else? Ken Russell. Well, I've not seen this. Is this based on the Dostoevsky novel? I don't know. I'll check this out. It's Cardinal Richelieu. Yeah, a mad witch hunter is brought in to gather evidence against a priest. Okay. Is that going to be another Salem witch trials sort of movie? It says religious fundamentalism goes mad. If you want some of that, I can point you to that all over the world. Into my neck of the woods, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, I thought, okay, this is great. I thought First Reform was a humanist, not a Christian movie. It was anti-Christian. That's why it's interesting to talk about theology with the review. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see why you think it's anti-Christian. It's definitely anti-megachurch, or it'd be hard not to see it that way. Megachurch being these humongous churches that bring in a lot of money and then cater to these sort of ideological, political projects, such as in the movie, the corporation that's polluting and contributing to climate change, right? So I get that, but I didn't sense that pastor was not going to continue to be a pastor and that he didn't believe. In Winter Light, it seems almost that he's an unbeliever in a pastor's costume. I could be wrong, but that's it. But I totally agree with you. It's a human. When you say humanist, I'm not sure what you mean. In the humanist, in the sense that humans matter and that they have a rich, thoughtful, complex inner life that they deserve to be respected and treated well. Love your neighbor as yourself, and that we should not, they have the right to trial by jury. I mean, all kinds of political and legal rights we can talk about with that. So if it's humanist in that way, I agree. If it's humanist in the sense that it's atheist, I don't know. I'd have to see your argument or be directed to something. Oh, no, now we're going to talk about Jewish people in Hollywood, I see. Uh-oh. Well, yeah. But the point is there are a lot of Christians in Hollywood. I actually know of many of them. Not like abundance, but I know of many of them. And not the Christian film industry, but films by and with and about, or TV shows by, with, and about Christians. That show Rectify is one you could try, which definitely, and it did have some, at least one or two Christians writing it. But all in all, I mean, in truth, I don't care who makes a movie. The Japanese can make movies, and they be Buddhist or Shintoist. I don't care, because they still think whatever truth is going to come through, it's going to come through. So, yeah, The Devils is based on a Huxley book. The Devils might be my thing. What is my thing? Very Ken Russell. I'm extending this live stream because somebody told me in the 10,000 subscribers video that the one thing they didn't like about my channel is that the live streams weren't long enough. Like, who wants to watch me for an hour? Not my students, I can tell you that much. But I appreciate that. Eyes Without a Face, they cut the blood for French censors. The censorship in the 20th century is just bizarre. You look at the history of censorship and what certain countries were censoring and what they let go, and the shifting values and standards for what was bad to show in a movie and what was okay. It's remarkable. Even my colleagues, occasionally will say the PG of the 1970s and 80s is very different from the present day, the PG rating in the United States. And they often forget showing movies to their kids. PG from 1983 is nowhere near PG from this present year. You know, that's a sign, and it's just the same around the world. Well, this movie from England was okay for the censors, but then it shows up here and it's not. And it all goes to what you want to see on screen and what you never want to see on screen. And we all have things that we do not want to ever see on screen that happen in real life. And at the same time, we complain about, and I think rightly so most of the time, things that we can't see in movies that ought to be in movies because they're in reality. So, yeah, that's always going to happen. There's always, to me, there's always going to be censorship because someone's going to be in power, and the powerful are going to want things not shown. Yeah, the Gospel according to Saint Matthew. Yeah, I don't know that one. Oh, wow. I'm learning things. Pasolini, yeah, thank you for bringing him up. Indeed. What was the Vernon, Florida comment about? I didn't see that, but yeah, anyway, here's a couple questions for you. One, did any of you see Nobody? This movie with Rob Odenkirk, and should I see Nobody? Two, should I actually pay to watch The Father? Should I pay $20 to watch The Father? Now, I've read that it's quite good. But I don't know whether to watch it and pay for it. Minari is the same thing. That was $20. Didn't watch it. Waiting till it gets cheaper, I can get it for free from my library. So if you've seen these movies, let us know. I also didn't review Justice League. If that's worthwhile, let us know that too. Yeah. Oh, I'm just waiting to see if anyone's going to respond to that. In the meantime, my plans on this channel, just let you know. I'll even tell you what I've just made. I've made at least 20 to 25 videos that 5 to 10 of them are Bergman. I'm on a Bergman streak, and you'll start to see those in July, I think. No, in May. I'm just reading some comments. There's so many ridiculous comments here. Yeah, so Bergman, I did a video on Eraserhead. I thought that turned out well. The Elephant Man, so I did a couple David Lynch movies. The Searchers, The Wages of Fear, Dr. Strangelove, and then about 5 to 6 Bergman movies so far, with a couple more to go. I mean, I'm still stuck in the middle of his humongous filmography. Oh my goodness, that man defined the Protestant work ethic, even though he wasn't a Protestant. Oh gosh. Yeah. I saw The Father, liked it, but I wouldn't pay for it. Saw Minari, liked it, but I wouldn't pay for it. What movie is worth $20? I don't know of any, honestly, because if you wait, they're going to be cheaper. So why would I do it now rather than later, other than to catch the tidal wave of commentary and criticism, which I got to say, me personally, I'm a guy who doesn't follow crowds. I don't care about crowds, in fact. So I would review things for the channel, for new movie reviews, but it wasn't available to me. So Minari, and I won't like Justice League, though it's miles better than what was put in theaters. Why wouldn't I like Justice League? Why do you think I wouldn't like Justice League? I'm very curious. I like some superhero movies, but yeah, The Father. So it's in the theaters, but I am not in a place where I have in the middle of nowhere. There's no theater near me that's playing The Father. It might come out of it may be on. The Father might come out because it's a Best Picture nominee in our theater. Sometimes those usually get spread around the world, around rural America. Are there any good romantic comedies? Yes, there are many good romantic comedies. I'm looking at my list. I will show you. This may be the last thing I talk about here. On my Letterboxd channel. It's a page. In fact, let me get the browser back over here for you. So, Letterboxd. I'm making lists, and I should update these. I update them regularly, but I should update them even more. What my favorite movies, you can look at those. The one I wanted, okay, movies I recommend to nearly everybody. That list right there, when I think of everybody in my life, I'm thinking of the old people in my life who don't know anything about movies, the young people who don't know anything, my mom and dad who are just casual movie watchers, of my friends who don't know anything about Fellini or Tarkovsky, and I'm thinking about what, say, more of a populist critic like Roger Ebert might like and recommend. And so that's why I put this list together. Like, well, what would I recommend to just anybody who wants a good casual movie but has some thought to it? So here you go. Now, the romantic comedies here, The Station Agent is fabulous. So go watch that. You will like it. I don't even care who you are. Most people will. There's no doubt about it. Thank you to the critic Jeffrey Overstreet for introducing me to this one. This is quite good. Big Night is excellent. Wonderful movie. Not romantic comedy. Sort of. Less romance in that than you would want. Brooklyn is pretty good. My wife loves this movie. It's really good to look at. The story is basic and interesting. Happy Go Lucky is an excellent movie. A joyful, pleasant, wonderful movie. I'm just skipping around here. You can investigate these other ones, but just to think about what you're asking. The Descendants, not really a romantic comedy. Paris, Texas is a heartbreaker. Oh my goodness, of a sort of romance. Oh my goodness. But you might like that one because that video always does well on this channel, Paris, Texas. And it is a magical, heartbreaking country song of a movie. The last hour is remarkable. Unbelievable. To Be or Not to Be is really fun. And romance, sort of, but it's a very goofy World War II movie with some seriousness to it. Babette's Feast is excellent. You should watch that. And just peruse this list. This list is for ordinary people, as I'm trying to say, that I know. Not every ordinary person in the world, but the ones I'm familiar with. So that's what I'm giving to you. And go check out that Letterboxd, those Letterboxd lists. You probably will like that. You'll probably find some on there that you like. And I will keep adding to those lists, and I want it to be sort of rich and full and worthwhile. Yeah, and I'm going to get to Dark Knight Rises and tell the whole world why that's actually a good movie. It's just me versus the world on that Dark Knight Rises, apparently. All right. Well, thank you so much. These comments are excellent. Looks like you guys got into a bit of a spat there, but whatever. I don't care. Have fun watching movies this month, and of course, keep up with the channel. Sign up for my newsletter. Sign up for my Letterboxd, Twitter. Any of those will give you what I'm doing on the channel, what videos I've just released, what I'm doing, working on, and always I'm your Gandalf. You're the Frodo of the journey of your life. I can help you find good movies and help explain some things to you. And feel free to ask questions. But I wish you the best for this month, and hope to see more of you or see all of you comment on the videos and interact with them. So everybody, take care. See you later. Have a great April. Springtime's coming, at least in the Northern Hemisphere.